Montage editing is something that became extremely stale to me with each montage I put out. After so many years of doing it, it became boring and uninteresting to me. When I released The Edge, my first main Halo 5 montage, my love for montage editing was rekindled. It was also the first of another trilogy I was planning. I never had a name for that trilogy, but The Edge, Eclipse, and Blood Moon all follow the same storyline within the allegory of the void. After Blood Moon, I moved on to other things, but they were still part of the allegory. In the next explanations, I'll be doing a sort of director's cut with each machinitage. That way you'll see what I'm talking about instead of watching some boring gameplay of mine that has nothing to do with the video. The first thing in this montage you'll notice is the recurring use of the moon. I often have cinematic shots of either the moon in the sky or the moon on the Magnum, and this has no meaning whatsoever. I just thought it looked cool for effects. It's also used for the theme to tie the montages together, if you will. In this next shot, there's quite a lot of explaining to do. I'll begin by explaining the Spartan, then the city. So first off, the Spartan is obviously myself. The most noteworthy thing about my Spartan is that in almost every montage I change my armor set. I do this because, well, I like to change my armor every now and then, but also because in this universe my soul is fragmented and shared between different bodies. I did this to show how I don't feel whole. I don't feel like I'm Lucas. Maybe 10 years ago I was, but now I'm just some strange patchwork of different personalities, preferences, and desires. Almost every new Spartan you see in the allegory is one of those fragments. I have little code names for them to keep things simple. The Spartan you're looking at right now is called White. He represents Bullet Rebel's innocent side, the one that just wants to enjoy playing Halo and making videos. But like all things that are pure and innocent, they can become tainted or corrupt. I'll explain this later. Moving on, let's talk about this city. To you, this is just a normal city on the map Eden, but in actuality it has much more meaning. The city, what I also call the Burning City, as you'll see later, is a representation of a rather small corner in my mind. A visualization of all the ideas I come up with for videos. Think of it as a graveyard where all my scrapped or unexplored ideas, concepts, and edits all go. In this graveyard lies a majority of new and experimental ideas that I've always been afraid of materializing. You know, coming up with an idea and turning it into an edit. I've always been afraid of trying something new and having it fail miserably. So instead, I stay within the comfort of sameness and leave my other ideas to burn forever in that dark city. But that's bad because if you never get out of that self-imposed prison of comfort, you'll never improve. When I first broke out of my cage and started blending machinima with montage editing, it felt great. I was doing something that no one else was doing, but I quickly realized that I was about to put myself back into another cage because machinitages became my new comfort zone. I wanted to keep doing them in Halo 5, but I had to do it differently. I had to experiment even if it meant no one would understand me. I also didn't want to make some fairy tale story like I did with the Phoenix trilogy, which is why I decided to tell a more personal one. I'm sure I mentioned this in a previous episode, but over the years my content has become much more of a personal reflection of myself, and I wanted to solidify that with the allegory of the void. I should also point out that you may notice that there are 3 different cities, this one from Eden, the one on Empire, and New Alexandria from Halo Reach. Eden and New Alexandria are the same city. I simply used both because later in my editing I came up with the idea of recording Reach footage and using that city instead of the one on Eden. Empire City is a bit different though, but it's a very small detail that I'll explain later as well. The Edge is also the first montage to sort of officially introduce the void. To be honest, you can completely disregard this part of the montage because I was still experimenting with the concept of the void and also green screen, so this whole scene doesn't make any sense story-wise. What you're seeing here is White teleporting into the void and ground pounding out of it. If you paid attention, you'll notice that White goes from Eden to Empire, which is essentially the same map to me. So you could say this fit in with my use of ambiguity, because you could either interpret this as White time traveling or entering another dimension or whatever. I don't even know myself, because like I said, the Edge is mostly experimental, so interpret this as you wish. One thing I can explain though is my use of the dark twitch effect and the color correction changes you often see throughout the montage. As I said before, all things pure can become tainted. White has experienced the void and is now slowly becoming consumed by it. Similarly, my videos became much darker and deeper in meaning, and I became increasingly lost in my own mind as time went on. I became obsessed with telling my abstract story that no one would even understand or care about. I'd stay up all night thinking of the storyboard for the machinima, what metaphors I should be using, and what clips I could hit for the montage. It was an unhealthy obsession too, because my eating habits and my sleep schedule were completely destroyed because of it. They still are, but I was happy because I felt like I was productive. I had a purpose. I figured that once my story, The Allegory of the Void, was done, then I could move on to other things and, take a break or something. And that's why I kind of want to take a break until at least Halo 6, because it's just become too much for me. And it's just a hobby, it's not supposed to consume my life as much as it does. Of course, I'll probably do some Halo 2 anniversary edits or something to keep my channel alive, I guess, but I definitely don't see myself doing another big project like Blood Moon or something like that until then. I really just don't have the willpower to work 8 hours a day on a montage anymore. By the way, speaking of hours, this depth of field effect you see throughout the entire video was all done by hand. I calculated it a while back, and I spent around 31 hours going frame by frame and masking in the blur effect by hand. I am never doing that again. If only 343 gave us our dev tools so we could have depth of field, I could have used those 31 hours elsewhere. Oh, and if you noticed, I never used the HUD in my edits either. I would never have been able to do the depth of field effect with it, so that's mainly why I toggled it off for the Edge. And I kept it off in my other montages for the sake of consistency. Plus it just looks more cinematic in my opinion, and I like it. It also leaves the window open for more effects like the custom scopes or kill feed that you saw in my recent videos. And now for the final scene of the Edge. So here we see White looking at the city on Empire, and he leaps towards it. As he does, the burning city phases in and out. Note the contrast between the bright and colorful city on Empire to the gloomy Reach city. This is a representation of how I was uncertain and really nervous about making the Allegory of the Void. Should I really get myself into this dark, symbolic storytelling, or should I keep doing simple montages with a lighter tone instead? What will people think about it? Maybe I should just scrap this whole idea. All of these things were going on in my mind, and at one point I just told myself to stop worrying. I'm just some random YouTuber who makes videos for fun. Take a leap of faith and continue with the Allegory of the Void. So I jumped. I jumped towards the burning city to retrieve the ideas I've left hidden in those ruins for so long.